what was the moment your life changed forever when the person you were had to die so a new one could be born?
Well, that's the question they ask me all over the world. People only really change in two ways. One when they want to, and one when they have to. You know, for me, it was both, and I wasn't set up for success. I wasn't entitled in any way. I didn't go to a fancy school or anything like that. My life has been one of extremes. I'm abandoned in a war zone, the war zone of Belfast. That was my beginning.
Every life has a spark, a truth the heart never forgets.
And sometimes one conversation is enough to bring it back.
No ego, no noise, just real insights that inspire and brighten the path ahead.
Because living with love isn't an idea, it's a choice that we make every day. Welcome back to Swiss Impact with Banerjees. Today's conversation may challenge you and may even open something deeper inside of you.
Because we won't start with achievements or titles. We will start with the human heart, with the journey behind the journey, the part most people don't even speak about.
So our guest today has lived through darkness, reinvention, and profound transformation. And today, we invite him to go far beyond branding and media, into the essence of what makes us human.
Stephen Gillen, welcome. Let's begin not with your work, but with your soul.
Hi, it's nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Diving right away. So, what was the moment your life changed forever when the person you were had to die so a new one could be born?
That's the question they ask me all over the world, of course. There's no easy answer apart from to say people only really change in two ways. One when they want to, and one when they have to. For me, it was both. And, I wasn't set up for success, as it were. I wasn't entitled in any way. I didn't go to a fancy school or anything like that. My life has been one of extremes. I'm abandoned in a war zone, the war zone of Belfast. That was my beginning. Very bad place to be in the early 70s. Everyone was killing each other. It was a very unhealthy environment. That was the start of it for me.
And when you think of that moment now, what emotion still lives quietly in your heart?
Well, I've definitely learned it's in the forging for all of us. Life is a journey of learning. One of the key things I've certainly learned is to be open to learn. You really see wise people ask a lot of questions. Dumb people know it all, right? So it's kind of like that. I'm on a real thirst always to learn, not from people who are going to waste my time, obviously, but people who have a gift to give, and that can come from all areas and all ages even, at all different times.
But you have gone through so much. So when life really breaks us or really stops us, there is this tiny moment when something quiet, something violent, when something inside begins to rise again. So what was your first moment when you realized that you wanted to live life differently?
I think there were many moments of that, to be honest with you. Was the little child on the boat coming from Belfast, age 9, going to the East End, succession of really brutal children's homes, groomed into petty crime, into organised crime, 17 years in prison. The other side of that, of course, after my metamorphosis, was I was nominated for an International Peace Prize in 2019. I've gone on as a serial entrepreneur to build many companies, best-selling author, TV personality here, both sides of the camera. The companies where I'm involved in, will be 50 million under management next year, with projections of going into 100 million the year after that. So, that just gives you the extremes of it all quickly.
But that's exactly what we're trying to figure out. So how and when this transformation happened, So obviously, there is some part of you that woke up that has been asleep for years, maybe even your whole life. But what was this part which woke up that brought this amazing transformation in your life?
It's an interesting question for me, and I'm a little bit different. I can only speak for myself. We know that our personalities are formed in our formative years, from ages 1 to 7, give or take. Um, in the old days in Ireland, although there was all the brutal stuff outside the door, inside the door, I was brought up by my grandparents, who was very kind. It was a very, very good. So as I went into darkness, as it were, I always, people say to me, was you mad? Was you bad? I say, well, yes, unfortunately, sailing the river, I was all of these things at a point, but I just had the courage, I had the timing, I had the circumstance, I had the intervention to find my way back to myself, if that makes sense.
So you teach people and leaders to be visible, but true visibility doesn't start with strategy, as we know. It starts with healing. How did your own wounds, shadows, and deepest truths shape the leader you became?
Well, it's definitely all about authenticity. This is the most powerful force. There's a lot of science behind this. It doesn't matter what medium we're in or necessarily what we do, as a job of work. But the real beating heart is how real we can be, how authentic we can be, like really to really deeper levels to translate, what we do outwards. And that, of course, is a inside job. It's an internal journey. So, but that's the thing about it, really. It's that journey towards that, I think.
When you guide people, like you have been guiding people now, what do you see first? The story that they tell to the world, or the story they're too terrified to tell?
It's about authenticity, to translate the power of that into any medium, because there's a lot of psychology to this, and in a simple way, as adults, we become really skilled and insightful if people are being true to us, or they're, embellishing things. Of course, this is very, very important in business. All right. So there's that part of it, right. On that level. Then there's the practical packaging, element that we all know about to sail the river. And there are many ways, many formats, many psychologies, many ways to do that and target that into demographic audiences.
And what happens to a human being when they finally tell you the truth, who they are?
I think it's really empowering, and it really frees them, And the crux of it is we respond to that as people. There's a lot of fear-driven stuff about, what will they think of me? Oh, will I open myself up for a weakness? Oh, will I get it wrong? And there's all of these things, but it really is about internal surrender, in many ways, and we're all going towards that in life anyway. Really, I'm sure we agree.
When you are sitting alone with yourself, what do you believe your life is really about?
Yeah, I've really got the answer to that. And for me, I just say it as it is. Life really beat me up so much. It said, no, you're going to be a real one, through the fire, through the fire, through the fire, and this is how we do it. There's no quicker, more exponential way. It's not for the faint-hearted, but my life has been one of extremes. This has taught me that we're all conduits. We're all conduits. One of the things we've all been talking about. I have a lot of friends there. They're really successful. They've kind of done it right in many ways. But one of the things that we all seem to be talking about and agreed on is, yeah, it's great. Yeah, we had this gift, and yeah, we've done this, and wasn't that great and all that. But we're all kind of unified in one of the questions we're going to be asked at the end is, yes, but what did you do with it? What did you do with these gifts that that we give you? There's more going on here. You can call it the divine. You can call it whatever you want to call it. More is revealed right along this journey, and this is certainly part of it.
Exactly, and that's what the impact you want in your life, not your brand, but what you're going to leave behind.
So what do you believe all humans really searching for, Steven?
It's a myriad of different things. I mean, we're definitely here to learn and to become aware. Awareness is a big thing. Just like the universe is expanding and it's becoming aware all the time. We are it and it is us. I think there's a big, it's a lot more simple in some ways. I try to keep things as simple as possible. It really is that. I think an important learning that I had is to keep it simple is whatever you want to call it, the field, the divine, the higher power, fate, the hand of fate, whatever you want to call it. I call all of them things because I know there's a real science to it, a field. I'm very big with that. I'm as deep as the ocean. I'm spiritual. I wouldn't necessarily say religious. I know that we know this, if we know anything, that's what we know, that's where I start from. It really is about learning. And I think it's all about the learning, and it's all about the growth. And it's certainly all about what can we translate that to outwards. Now, of course, some people, they can pick a different kind of energy. It can be negative, can be more a dark energy, can be destructive. But that's not the ruling power here, certainly not, and it's not what it's about. It's about the creation. It's about building. It's about the output of learning, positivity. So there are energies here as well, definitely, I would say.
And when everything else falls away, who are we?
Personally, but I believe, do you know what? When everything is really stripped away, I believe this is where faith is. Real faith is, because you have nothing else left. And this is what it will leave you with. Okay, is it going to be all right? Am I going to survive? Is tomorrow going to come? And it's really, this is a matter of faith at that point, I think.
How about love? What is love for you?
I've always found it hard to understand love. That's just being honest. Everyone, has the connotation of this word, but actually the practice of it, again, it's a real learning. It's took me, a long time, to really, really understand things like love. It's an amazing word, an amazing practice. And I've learned other people actually teach us that.
If we're speaking about divinity, these energies, we are speaking always as is it outside, but obviously we are part of it. It's also important to give love not only to the outside world, but yourself as well. But many people are struggling with that. Can you share your experience? How do you love yourself?
All these things are just so integral to the progress of the journey, right? I suppose, if you want to say it like that, and this certainly, I'm sure. I mean, I talk to many people. We're all the same. There's all the practical stuff and the clever stuff, and we keep developing this and learning that and doing all this and the new thing. But really, the biggest breakthroughs I've had in business have been internal breakthroughs in my character. Really as easy as that. So that's how important this stuff is. Keep developing as a human being, all right, to elevate, all right. That's been a key for me. So I'm very big on that. And of course, understanding yourself, loving yourself, being kind to yourself, getting out of your own way, of course. Number one offender, is a big thing here. I didn't start there. I was not in good shape. There was times I was not on the floor. I was 10 foot, 20 foot under that. But, even there is a strange kind of freedom of learning. The only way is up, when you're at the basis human kind of part of yourself, there's a real forging there, that becomes resilient. It's a place not many people visit, I don't think, but I know people do. There's great learning there, which I've certainly translated into my business journey.
So maybe you share with us what's the legacy you plan to build till end of your life? What's your plan for the next, I hope, 50 years?
You kind of come to it, and I kind of come to the stage. There's a stage you're chasing a business, learning how to do all these things, and then if you can get to that and you've developed enough and all the rest of it, and you get the opportunities and stuff, you make the best of them. The business, you start to chase that. Outgrows you, and then there's a time you're chasing the business, right? But there's like a thing people say, it's who you know. But we all know you have to know enough to be there anyway in the first place. But there's another level, which is who knows you after that, all right? Which people don't really understand, but it's very true. And for me, when you kind of get down the path a little bit, as it were, I know I'm not alone. A lot of my friends are the same. We really understand that we're conduits, and there's a next level of really kind of giving, and it's philanthropic, and it's the stuff that's close to our heart, and it doesn't become about what it was before. Do you know what I mean? It's a closing of the circle, and I'm really, you really become aware of time. Philanthropic stuff. I mean, I'm involved in a few foundations, which are close to my heart.
Which ones? Can you share a bit more, Stephen? Like, what is on your heart? Like, which topics in the challenges in the societies are on your heart?
Yeah, I mean, the Tree of Life is a big one. I'm very, very close to a Jewish family in the US. They're the same, extremely wealthy, and they are just at that point now, and they've come up with stuff. And, the Tree of Life is about living with intention, and children around the world knowing that they can live with intention and that they are valued. And I have the Tree of Life, thing here that they made, which is the Tree of Life. But there's little prayers and stuff in here. You've got positive words in there like oneness, love, health, all of this stuff. And you put these in here. But, we want to give every child in the world one of these to know that they are valued no matter where they are, and they can live a life of positive intention. This is just one thing I'm involved in, which is a thing. But there are others as well. I'm quite taken and quite focused with, impoverished children who was in the same kind of place that I was, in the inner cities and, and stuff like that. Getting them the education, and the frameworks to know that they can do better if they just have the right frameworks around them to give them the opportunities. There's just so much talent there. It's like that Trading Places film. If you think about it, you remember that film? If you change the whole architecture and the whole environment of someone, what do they become? But that also goes the other way too, right? So that's interesting.
So if you look at yourself back, like in your very dark moment, what would you whisper to that self, to you, old you, that would help you? And maybe these words would help someone who is right now is struggling so much in life.
Well, I would say stay away from bad people, places and things, and just always do the next right thing, no matter how hard that is, and it can be difficult, and you will end up somewhere okay.
That's great, Stephen. Thank you for your honesty, courage, and your heart-opening conversation.
This was amazing. One of the most amazing conversations I have had. Because I see everything in pictures. And when you were saying that, I could really imagine that somewhere somebody is in a very, very dark place and doesn't know how to get out of it. And then these words of yours can make a difference.
So to our viewers, remember, real impact begins when you stop hiding, right? That's important, to dare to be who you are and start from there, building yourself. So your life is your legacy, and the greatest legacy is always love.
Authenticity, love, authenticity, and to work honestly at what you want to be and make it real. Finish. Be a finisher. Be a finisher. It's great advice.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Stephen, for your wisdom and for your honest words to our audience.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for sharing this space with us today.
Remember, real impact begins the moment you stop running from who you are.
Let today's story remind you that every soul carries light, even through darkness.
Until next time, stay open, stay human, and lead with love.